This car looks like it rolled straight out of the 1970s, but what's hiding under the hood is something no one was expecting. While most retro-inspired cars rely purely on nostalgia, this one is trying to mix old-school charm with modern performance, technology, and safety. But does it actually pull it off? Some people are calling it the perfect blend of past and present, while others say the retro look is doing all the heavy lifting. So is this just a style over substance car, or is it secretly one of the smartest buys in today's market? Let's find out.
But what's hiding under the hood is something no one was expecting.
At first glance, this car feels like a throwback, but it's actually one of the most talked about new launches in its category. Built by a brand known for blending character with everyday usability, this model is clearly aimed at drivers who want something different without giving up modern comfort. It's designed for people who love classic styling but still expect today's tech, safety, and efficiency. That's what makes this launch so interesting right now. In a market flooded with futuristic designs and touchscreens everywhere, this car is going in the opposite direction, and that's a bold move. But bold doesn't always mean better. In just a moment, we'll break down what this car gets right, where it cuts corners, and whether its retro appeal actually holds up once you look closer.
Once you move past the retro styling, this is where things start to get really interesting. Because underneath that classic shape, this car is far more modern than it wants you to believe. From the moment you step closer, small details stand out. The rounded headlights, the sculpted body lines, and those throwback design cues that feel intentional rather than gimmicky. It's clearly designed to turn heads in a parking lot, but it also tries to justify its looks with substance.
Open the door, and the contrast becomes obvious. The interior blends old-school inspiration with modern convenience. You still get physical buttons and knobs where they matter, which many drivers will appreciate, but they're paired with a clean digital display and a modern infotainment screen. It feels familiar, not outdated. Materials are solid to the touch, and while it may not scream luxury, it feels thoughtfully put together.
This is the kind of cabin you can imagine living with every day, whether it's a short commute or a long weekend drive.
Now let's talk about what really surprises people: performance. This car may look calm and nostalgic, but it doesn't feel slow or lazy on the road. Acceleration is smooth and confident, especially around town, and it has enough power to merge onto highways without stress. Steering feels light but controlled, making it easy to maneuver in tight spaces, while still offering enough feedback to stay engaging. It's not pretending to be a full-blown sports car, but it doesn't feel boring either, and that balance is harder to get right than it sounds.
Technology is another area where expectations get flipped. You'll find modern driver assistance features quietly working in the background, lane support, collision alerts, and smart safety systems that step in when needed without being intrusive. It's the kind of tech that makes the car feel up to date without constantly reminding you it's there. That said, not everything is perfect. Some features may be limited to higher trims, and depending on the version, you might notice a few cost-cutting choices that could disappoint more demanding buyers.
Efficiency and everyday usability also play a big role here. Whether this car runs on gas, hybrid power, or something more modern, it's clearly tuned for real-world driving rather than headline numbers. Ride comfort is compliant, road noise is well controlled, and visibility is excellent, something many modern cars struggle with. Still, there are trade-offs. Rear seat space or cargo room might not match more practical rivals, and that retro shape does come with compromises. And then there's the question everyone asks: price. On paper, it might seem competitive, but once you factor in trims, features, and alternatives, things get more complicated. Is the retro design worth paying extra for? Or does another car offer better value with fewer compromises? Because next, we're going to break down the biggest highlights, the most noticeable drawbacks, and the one detail that could completely change how you see this car. This is the moment where the retro styling stops being just a visual statement and finally has to prove itself on the road. Once the car is pushed beyond casual driving, expectations shift fast.
On an open stretch of road, the acceleration is more confident than the looks suggest. It pulls forward smoothly, with enough urgency to surprise anyone who assumed this was all about nostalgia. The engine, or power delivery, feels responsive, not strained, and the car stays composed even when pushed harder than most buyers ever will.
But the real test comes when conditions change. Tight corners, uneven pavement, sudden braking, this is where retro-inspired cars often fall apart. Instead, this one holds its line better than expected. The suspension absorbs bumps without feeling soft, and the brakes inspire confidence when you need them most. It's not a track weapon, but it doesn't feel out of place when driven with intent. And that's the turning point. This car isn't just leaning on its looks, it's backing them up with real-world capability. That said, the surprises aren't all positive. As the drive continues, a few cracks start to show. Push it for longer periods, and you may notice limits in power delivery or comfort that remind you exactly what this car was designed for. Road noise creeps in at higher speeds, and certain driver assist systems can feel overly cautious. These aren't deal breakers, but they do pull the experience back down to earth. Then comes the comparison moment, or the realization that changes everything. When stacked against its closest rivals, this car doesn't win every category. Some competitors are faster, others more practical, and a few offer better value on paper. But none of them deliver this exact mix of personality, drivability, and everyday usability.
And that's where the question shifts. This isn't about raw numbers anymore. It's about whether this car's character is strong enough to justify its compromises. Because in the final verdict, that answer may surprise you. So where does this car actually land once the nostalgia fades and the real-world driving begins? The answer is more impressive than many expected. This isn't just a retro-styled experiment. It's a genuinely usable, well-rounded vehicle that blends character with modern functionality. Its biggest strength is how effortlessly it balances old-school design with today's comfort, safety, and technology without feeling forced or gimmicky. That said, it's not for everyone. If you're chasing the fastest acceleration, the biggest screens, or maximum cargo space, there are better options out there. The retro shape brings compromises, and some features only make sense if you're willing to step up to higher trims. But for buyers who care about personality, simplicity, and everyday drivability, those trade-offs feel intentional rather than frustrating. In today's U.S. market, where many cars are starting to look and feel the same, this car stands out by doing something different. Instead of chasing extreme performance numbers or overly complex tech, it focuses on connection and usability. That approach could signal a shift in what buyers value, especially as more drivers start prioritizing comfort, design identity, and real-world efficiency over spec sheet bragging rights. For commuters who want a car that feels special every time they walk up to it, this makes a lot of sense. For enthusiasts who appreciate design heritage but still want modern reliability, it's a refreshing option. And for buyers tired of safe, forgettable choices, this car offers something rare, personality with purpose. So the real question isn't whether this car is perfect, it's whether you want something that blends past and present in a way that actually works. Would you choose character over convention, or do numbers still matter more to you? Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit like if this review helped you, and subscribe for more honest car reviews and comparisons every week.